Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Colleen Baker. I am a producer here at the Houston Chronicle. Welcome to this week's iteration of HC Live. We are very excited to obviously speak about all things home ownership, home purchasing in Houston and in Texas, probably at large. And that is a very big mouthful and a very big topic. Obviously, we have Marissa Luck, our real estate reporter here, who covers this inside and out, and she will continue to do so, obviously, with our great experts here. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you all can hear us and start telling us where in Houston or Harris County or suburbia you are tuning in from. Are you in Montrose looking to purchase in Bel Air? Are you in Atascocita looking to move out of town to Conroe? Who knows? I know there's a very big, wide variety of people in Houston that are probably tuning in. So I see someone from Kingwood is tuning in. Definitely, if you are in the real estate market, which if you are tuning in, hopefully you are, let us know your situation too. We might be able to have our experts coming in, give some guidance. I see Eastwood in Houston looking in this neighborhood, as well as Idlewood, Country Club Place, and a few other places. So the good news is the chat's working. We can see you all. You can see us. I want to make sure Marissa's got her microphone turned on because I think she's about ready to join us in full swing. Yes. Marissa, you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. I wanted to make sure we got all of you here. I see people from Memorial tuning in area too. So without further ado, I will pass it on to you, Marissa, to get us started.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Marissa Luck. I'm a real estate reporter at Houston Chronicle. I cover residential and commercial real estate. I've lived in Houston for about 7 years, and I remember how confusing it was to buy my first home, and that was actually in Washington State. And now I'm in the process of trying to maybe move up to another home. So I totally understand the process can be overwhelming. So hopefully we can help everyone, and we've got an awesome group of panelists here. And yeah, I don't know if did we want to go and say their names quickly, or?
Yeah, go ahead and definitely, I mean, very quickly, I guess I can take it over. Naisha Walton is here. Obviously, we've been working with all of these wonderful panelists. She's a broker over at the Lending Village. We have Cesar Calderon, who's obviously on the other side of the city, I feel like, from, where I am, but he obviously is a veteran and Latino, can maybe speak to Katy a little bit. I know we talked about that. And then, of course, we have Gina Tran, who I believe is in Pearland, but she's a real estate agent, with tons of years of experience serving Pearland out sort of areas. And we'll get into more of that. But, another thing I wanted to make sure that people were aware of, we are taking questions live. So the experts are ready. If you have a broker question for Naisha, if you have a Pearland specific question for Gina, or a veteran specific question for Cesar, these people have touched all of these areas, but start dropping them in the comments below. And over back to you, Marissa. I want to make sure you get all your questions in.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to go over a lot of different things, and then we'll have some time at the end for those questions that the audience has. If you have something, we may not address it right away, but we will at the end for sure. And this, also, we're going to record this too. So it should be up on YouTube. If you need to run, go back to work or whatever, or share it with someone who wasn't able to attend, please look out for that on YouTube. But first, I just want to start out with a question that I get all the time from readers and from my friends, which is when are mortgage rates going to go down, right? Like, it feels like we can all remember when mortgage rates were around 3%, and now they're close to 6 or 7%, which has priced out a lot of buyers, or it means that, you can't buy as big of a home. So I'm just curious, Naisha, what do you think about this question that we hear about mortgage rates, and what are your expectations? And, everyone can join in, but just wanted to start with you in terms of how do buyers think about that question?
So I get this question a lot. And my response is, when I ask how are rates doing, rates are rating. That's what rates do, they rate. A lot of people are focused on interest rates. And I mean, interest rates are important, but what's more important is equity. Nobody has a crystal ball to tell us when rates are going to go up or down. People have this mindset that they want this 3%, 2.5% interest rate, but do we want the pandemic that comes along with that rate? Let's keep in mind, that's why rates dropped the way they dropped, because we were in a pandemic. people were at home all the time. People were working from home, that people were, educating their children from home. So they needed more space. They needed bigger homes and people were moving. I just don't think it's a good idea to predict or try to predict rates when we really don't know what's happening. The best thing to do is to look at the payment and look at the equity and see what you can afford.
Mhm.
I'd like
Yeah,
to
and
add on to that.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You don't want to be predicting the rate. It's hard to say what it's going to do. Just like when you're investing in stocks, you want to buy consistently, and that's going to be the name of the game long term. And I think the equity point is fantastic because that's what you're missing out on when you're not making those purchases, especially for those who don't currently own a home. I understand somebody who currently owns and they're trying to make a transition. They're holding equity wherever they are. I understand that. But nonetheless, if we're also needing to accomplish goals in our lives, sometimes we're looking for specific school or job placement or many circumstances, right? Don't focus on the race, guys. Let's remember why we're doing these things. We're living our lives. We're trying to do the best things we can. Uh, your real estate professionals and your lenders, we're going to make sure that we're going to put the deal together where the payments are fine. And my favorite quote, or call it a sales gimmick, is date the rate, buy the house, right? So marry the house, date the rate. When the rates do drop, you can refinance it and you should be good to go as long as you have that awesome equity that we're going to work really hard to make sure you get, or your agents are going to do that, hopefully.
Yeah, and I was gonna say there's the Federal Reserve is meeting today. We don't know what they're gonna do with interest rates. I think there's general expectations that they'll probably remain steady. So what that tells me, and just speaking to other people in the market, interest rates or mortgage rates probably are not going to go down that much more this year. They're probably going to stay around the same. So what I hear from realtors all the time is, don't try to time the market. You kind of just have to go with what is right for you in your life now. And, unfortunately, it means that you may have to buy a smaller house or buy an older house or in a different area, or look into other ways to, be able to make that house payment work. But the reality is that, rates are not going to go down to 3%, 4%. Even, if they're at 5% next year, I would be like really surprised. Although we have had some people that, Naisha, you had mentioned, working with different lenders who are able to get credits and different kind of specials to get around 5%. But I did want to turn to, this kind of feeds into the next question that I want to ask Gina is, the next question we get is, okay, so is now a good time to buy? And when is a good time to buy?
Sure. To me, I know everyone may have different answers for this, but my personal opinion, it just really depends. If you are living at home with your parents, then maybe take that time to save as much money as possible, to make as much money as you can, to work on your credit score, to minimize debt, to maximize income, and just wait a little bit. Perhaps wait until December, January, and February when there is a lot less buyers buying and time it that way so that you have a more upper hand when putting in an offer. Um, I think it depends on your life circumstance. If you are in a 3-bedroom home and you're expecting your third child to come and you just need more space because it's getting really tight, really uncomfortable, your day-to-day life is not what you want it to be, and you just need that other bedroom to accommodate the additional baby, then perhaps it really is time to buy and go ahead and make the move. I think it just really depends on your life circumstance. If you're moving to a place that you plan to live maybe only 2 years, then I say maybe go ahead and rent. But when you rent, rent at a non-luxury place. Rent somewhere where the rent is as low as possible, but it keeps you safe and it keeps you warm and you can sleep at night peacefully. And then whatever savings you're making on that lower, the lower cost apartment versus a luxury apartment, use that savings to save as much money as you can for your purchase, for your down payment, for your future furniture. So my answer is it depends. But if you are ready to purchase, you need that space. You're going to move somewhere, you're going to live 3 years plus or more. I say go ahead and bite the bullet with interest rates and go ahead and purchase. Because the last thing you want is to live in Houston, you're renting for 3 years, all that thousands of dollars of rent money going to somebody else. You could have purchased in the first year, live for 3, 4, 5 years, sell it, and have some money from the sale of the house to purchase your upgrade home, your more dreamy home. So it really depends on your life circumstance. And of course, when you talk to Cesar and Aisha and myself, we can also kind of tailor your I guess your buying timeline and your buying preparation to what you really need in your personal life.
Yeah. And I think that what we have seen is, there are more buyers that have entered the market, but at the same time, there are more sellers, existing homeowners that are finally saying, okay, yeah, maybe I'm ready to move, and they're putting their houses on the market. And what's happened is we've seen this tremendous increase in supply in Houston. I mean, it's a fairly balanced market still, but some people say, oh, maybe it's a buyer's market. So I was going to ask, Cesar, what does that mean for a buyer, when they're in a buyer's market? Like, what are you seeing on the ground? What does that look like?
Correct. So just for context, a neutral market is when you have about 6 months of inventory. And currently Houston is hovering between 4.5 and 5 months. So even though it's for all intents and purposes a seller's market, it's a softer seller's market. And also, and this might be kind of a crass analogy, but I would say the sellers of Houston typically enjoy a healthy, strong seller's market. And whenever it kind of falters a little bit, they get self-esteem issues. So even though it's a seller's market, they might believe it's not. And like, oh my gosh, the houses are just taking a little bit too long to sell. And so we always have to remind them, hey, let the process take its place. Let us as your let the agents guide you there, okay? But also for buyers, it's a phenomenal time to take advantage because the sellers are feeling that tension. So there's the facts on, the statistical reality. It is a seller's market, although it's a softer one relative to most recently, right? But it's actually a really good time for buyers to purchase. And right now, a lot of houses are hitting the market. So for me, this is the time to buy. This is the time to strike. And let's just wait to see what those interest rates do later to refi. That's my strategy right now.
Yeah.
I
And oh, sorry.
Yes, I agree with Cesar. If you're ready to buy, go ahead and buy. Don't do analysis paralysis about the interest rate and not do anything. If you're ready to buy or you've been renting your apartment for $2,500 a month and you're about to have to decide if you need to renew it for another 12 months, I say look into buying. Go ahead and look into buying because right now um, it is a soft seller's market, but I can tell you if the home is on the market for more than 21 days, the seller is open to your offer. Make an offer.
Yeah.
Hire a realtor that can advise you to make a strong offer, an attractive offer, but one that can help you buy down your interest rate as well.
Yeah. And I think the reality is if you're paying $2,000 a month in rent, you can probably find a house in Houston still. I mean, I was just looking at some hard numbers. They said the typical monthly payment in May was about like 1,800, I believe. So, I mean, that just shows you there are some places that people are renting that are more expensive than buying like a, medium priced home. And a lot of it is about that down payment, which gets to another question, which is what if, for folks that aren't quite financially ready to buy yet, Naisha, what kind of steps can people take to start putting themselves in a position where they will be able to buy?
So the first thing you need to do is complete a home loan application. Don't try to pay off credit cards. Don't start paying debt. Don't start calling your collection agencies and making arrangements. Go directly to I'm, kind of biased. I'm going to say a mortgage broker. The banks are great, but mortgage brokers specialize in mortgages. So we're going to have a lot more products and a lot more patience for what you're going to need to do. So the very first step is to speak with the loan officer and see where you're at. With my company, we don't just deny people. We'll say, hey, Marissa, I need you to pay Sears off. I need you to pay Macy's off. And then I need you to take that raise that your job offered. I know you're comfortable in your current position, but go ahead and take that promotion. And then let's revisit this in 90 days. So I'll give you a blueprint. So the very first thing you need to do is fill an application out because I have people out here paying off cars, credit score drops, paying off credit cards, closing the credit card out, credit score drops, and they think they know what they're doing, but they don't. So the best thing to do is come to mommy and daddy, your mortgage brokers, and get permission to pay stuff off. Don't change jobs if you don't have to, unless you're being promoted. Don't take a leave of absence unless you absolutely have to. Don't make any major changes to your financial situation. Don't make any major purchases. Go to the mortgage broker, complete the application, allow them to pull your credit. That's another obstacle we get. I don't want my credit pulled. I'm not giving you $500,000 if I can't see how you pay your bills. And just trust the process. Go in there with an open mind and a trusting mindset, because if you don't trust the process, it's going to be chaotic for everybody. So very first step is to call your mortgage broker.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is that, people, what goes into your credit score, to me, it's like mystifying, you take out a card and suddenly your credit score goes up. So I think what you're saying is it's good to get advice from a professional who can say, these are the kinds of debts that you can pay down that will actually have a meaningful difference, on your credit score on this application. And that gets me into, the practical side of the buying process. Gina, can you walk me through, what's the very first step you should take when you're really serious about buying?
When you're really serious about buying, like Naisha said, perhaps it's the first step is talking to the lender, because she'll provide you a blueprint of which debt to pay off first. And along with that, find ways to make more money. It's always going to feel better if you have more money than you need when it comes to buying a house. Because not only is it a down payment that you have to consider, but you also have to consider furnishing the home. So consider a side hustle, consider selling your items, consider going to Dave Ramsey's financial, snowball planning for yourself. Consider taking photographs for families on the weekends. Whatever it is, create a side hustle, create a bank account, and put all that money into that bank account. Work on your credit score. If you're paying your bills late, then it's a big sign that you're not really ready for the homeownership responsibility. So work on your credit score, clean it up, make sure you're paying your bills on time. Save as much money as possible. So even though you're making a lot of money, don't be, going to happy hour every day and spending all the money that you've made. You've got to think smart. It's all math. So as you're making a lot of money, also save a lot of money. Find ways to increase your income in your profession right now. Ask for a raise, ask for more projects, etc. And then while you're doing those financial things, start narrowing down what you're looking for. Like, what do you really need? Do you really need a pool? Do you really need 4 bedrooms? Do you really need 5 bedrooms? Or do you only really need 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms? Narrow down location. Because when you narrow down your location and what your musts are, it'll help the agent help you much better. You need to know what you want and what you truly need. So when the agent comes alongside you, they can really maximize the time with you and getting you exactly what you need and what you can really afford.
Absolutely. And I guess in a nutshell, start living under your means sooner than you think.
Yes.
Like, I wish I had started doing that when I was 20.
Yes, I know.
So it's always, even if you're in Gen Z, or if you have a daughter or son in Gen Z, tell them to start living under their means immediately. I don't care if they feel like they don't want a house, so they can just be free and whatever. In 10 years, they're going to want a house. And then they're going to be like, why didn't you help me save? But anyways, another element to this, we've been talking a lot about, first, people who maybe are unfamiliar with the process of buying or selling a home. But this gets into another big group of people where it's a little bit more complex, where they maybe already have a home, existing homeowners who are ready to move up into that bigger house. Maybe they're expanding their family, or on the opposite side, they're ready to downsize. They're empty nesters. Right now, we're in a market where homes are taking a little longer to sell. And unfortunately, a lot of people need to sell their homes so that they can have that equity to put into their next house. So Cesar, could you talk about how do you go about that process when you're an existing homeowner who needs not only to buy a house, but to sell their existing house?
I think that's such a great question, and a very important one as well, especially in our current market, right, where sellers are feeling skeptical about what's happening. Am I going to be able to sell mine in time to make the purchase? It's very scary. I'm actually working with a handful of people who are in that exact scenario right now. Thankfully, there are many tools, tricks, strategies that as realtors and lenders we can apply to make that occur. And I'm actually really proud to say that every single family that's approached me in this situation has accomplished that goal. So I'm very glad that you're asking me this question. Um, the most important thing I want to tell everybody who's in that situation right now is that you have to have flexibility. Number one, if you create a strategy, a plan that's so rigid that you set yourself up for failure, it will never work. So you have to be very open with your agent and say, hey, listen, this is our number one priority, right? To land over here, to see the payment like this, for our house to sell in this amount of time, for us to pocket this much money from the sale. Well, but let's be realistic. We cannot expect to go into every battle with zero casualties. And unfortunately, what happens when we do suffer, right? So we have to talk about all the contingencies. How much time do we really have? How much time can we really wait? Hey, if we found the perfect location, right? The perfect layout for the house, the perfect school districts, whatever it is, right? How much are you willing to spread, extend your budget to make that occur? And once we start having those real in-depth conversations, then that's where the beautiful plan comes together. And what I like about the plan is that you're never walking down one path uh, on its own. We're attacking all paths, and one by one, those paths start disappearing, going away. That's no longer an option. But the one that was meant to be is, and that's how we make these things occur. But to be more specific of what am I saying? Because this is all like in general, right? Or Caesar, what are you even saying here? There's bridge loans, right? You don't end up selling your house in time. We could find financing who will help you purchase your new home and cover you for the duration of time that it takes for you to sell your current home. So that's one way to do this. Another way to do it is contingent offers. You don't have to wait to have your house sold cash in hand to go buy. Let's start submitting offers the moment your house is on the market and we start hearing that offers are coming in. Let your agent tailor a story to that other seller and say, hey, listen, my clients are ready to go. This is where they are. Look at our amazing listing. This house is not going to spend any time on the market. So why don't you commit with us and let's get this going? There's also lease backs, right? So you could sell your home, stay in your home a little bit longer in case you need that. Or on the other side, the flip side, lease into the home you're going to buy and purchase. A little more trickier to do that, but it's a possibility. I guess the moral of everything I'm saying here is every situation is different and unique. And this is probably the longest conversation to have when it comes to anything that you're trying to plan is that sell and buy process. But the more you open up to your agent, to your lender, and you're honest about everything, the better plan you can achieve.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify he said a couple terms just for a general audience if you haven't heard, like when he said you can make an offer that's contingent, that means like you can, as a buyer, you can put an offer on another house, but say my offer is contingent upon me selling my own house. And you can some sellers may be open to that, especially if their house has been on the market a while. And then another option he had mentioned was you as a seller can sell your house to someone else, but then to lease it from them for like a month or two or however long they're comfortable with, so that you can have a little bit of cushion to be able to find your next house. And those are all things that are frequently negotiated. So I wanted to get into talking about, as you're trying to come up with funds to be able to do this. Naisha, can you talk about what kinds of down payment assistance programs are available in Texas? And what's the difference between getting down payment assistance versus getting like a grant to help with your down payment?
Yes. So down payment assistance programs can be great if you need them, if you seriously need them. Otherwise, I would have you look into getting a gift or pulling money from your 401k. I think someone in the chat is asking about pulling money from a 401k. Those are better options because down payment assistance oftentimes comes with higher interest rates. Why? Because they have a lot more liability. There's no skin in the game. So those are the loans that default the fastest. So the interest rates are going to be higher. The city of Houston has a down payment assistance program for first-time home buyers. It's forgivable. If you stay in the home for like 5 years, they give you up to $50,000. Harris County has another one for $23,800. If you have a 580 FICO score, you can qualify for something like that. There's lots of programs. There's more than I can list. There's also nationwide ones that also will help in Texas. I prefer the nationwide ones because they don't have as much red tape. They're easy to qualify for, and you can close on those ones a lot faster. Down payment assistance can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. I always tell people free money is expensive. So just make sure that you really need that money. On an average loan amount, let's say like $290,000, your payment on the down payment assistance, your mortgage payment is going to be about $300 higher a month because you received the assistance. So you really want to sit there and do the math and say, okay, was this $10,000 worth this extra $300 a month? If you can't get a gift, or if you can't get money, pull money from your 401k, or whatever savings you may have. Yeah, the down payment assistance programs, like I said, they can be great, but just don't. A lot of people think it's like a hustle. Like, yeah, I'm about to get this money for this down payment. I'm not going to have to bring any money. No, you're still going to bring money to the table. You're still going to have investments. You're still going to have an EMD. You're still going to have inspection. You're still going to have appraisal. You're still going to have other costs, closing costs that you'll still need to make sure you have in the bank, money in the bank for. If you have questions about down payment assistance programs, go on ChatGPT, put your area in, see what programs are available. A lot of people will try to get down payment assistance program, and the loan officer will be reluctant to help them. And just a little insider tip, we don't get paid as much on those loans. We work 3 times harder and we get paid less. So you'll see a lot of lenders that say, oh, I don't do DPA. I don't do grants. I do them. My goal here is to help you get into a house, but there are a lot of people that won't. So if your lender says, oh, we don't have that program, that's not because the program doesn't exist. That's because that lender doesn't work with that program. Go to another lender. Keep going to lenders until you find the program that you fit. I always call it a box, where you fit in that box.
That is good advice. I think sometimes people forget that they can it's a variety of different options and service levels depending on where you go. So I think it's okay to talk to several lenders before deciding on which one, you want to go with. And I did want to get into some, we've talked about some general questions about the housing market, but I wanted to get into specific nuances in Houston. So one of the questions that we get a lot is, what if you're, want to buy a house in the floodplain? We have a lot of people in Kingwood on this webinar listening in. So I know that's an issue there, but honestly, it's an issue everywhere. So, what do you do? Should you just avoid buying in the floodplain at all? What if you fall in love with the house, or, it's that right price point and everything's great, but it's in the floodplain? How would you advise clients about this, Gina?
So again, everyone has a different opinion about this. I know that even on our panel, we have a different opinion. It's great to learn the different opinions and see what suits you best. Personally, for me, I do not advise my buyers to purchase homes that require flood insurance. The cost is around $2,500 to $3,000 a year, so it's an additional expense for you. Secondly, Cesar mentioned a word that I thought was perfect for it. Everyone has a different risk aversion. If you're okay with the possibility of your home flooding one day, but still have insurance, you're going to be okay. And you don't like having that thought in the back of your head of that possible risk, and it would affect your daily life, your daily peace, then I actually also do not advise purchasing in a floodplain. Third is resale value, and also resale experience. Whenever I represent a buyer and purchasing a home, I always think to myself, okay, will they have a good resale value when they sell, and also a good resale experience when they sell? It's proven that homes that are in a floodplain or that require flood insurance, they are on the market for longer than homes that are not. And they also have to sell for lower than homes that are not in the floodplain. So it just truly depends on the buyer. But personally, for me, I advise my clients against it. But if the buyer really loves a home and they're aware of these risks, then of course I proceed according to their desires.
Yeah, and I think that the reality is there's so many different neighborhoods that are in the floodplain, and, you know, floodplain maps, you know, they've changed from time to time. We know that a lot of houses that flooded during Harvey weren't even in the floodplain map, or sorry, weren't even in the floodplain. Someone talked about, Seth just asked, how do you assess the risk? HoustonChronicle.com, we actually have a map, an interactive map on our website where you can enter in any address and see if it flooded during Harvey, if it's in the floodplain, 100 year, 500 year, which also Harris County has that too. But ours also has layered on, like, was flooded during Harvey. And then also there's not just floodplains, but floodways, you know, so there's a lot to think about. But if you are buying in a floodplain, if that house checks all the boxes, you know, you got to get flood insurance. So Naisha, can you talk about flood insurance and how much does that add on to the cost of your monthly payment usually?
It's going to depend on how likely your neighborhood is to flood. There's a scale that's used. I was one of those people that refused. I was like, Gina, I'm not moving into a flood zone. I don't want to have to worry about my house flooding. And then the house I fell in love with was 5 feet underwater during Harvey, and the owners had to escape through the kitchen window. So I ended up buying a house in a flood zone. And my policy is $2,500 a year, and it hasn't gone up. I've been in this policy for a couple of years, and, you know, knock on wood, we haven't had any issues with floods. What I wish my realtor would have educated me on was, you know, a whole house generator. We've had more power outages than everything. But what I do with my clients is I say, okay, say Gina's my real estate agent, I'm the broker, and she's representing one of my buyers. Gina will call me and say, hey, we're getting ready to put an offer in, and I'll call my insurance agent immediately. And I'll say, I need an insurance policy. How much is the HOI going to be? How much is the flood going to be? Is this in a wind zone? And I get those numbers right away, so Gina can put that offer in or not put the offer in based on what those numbers come back. So we dig deep. We make sure that the client can afford it and they're emotionally prepared for if there is a flood. Do you have family nearby you can go stay with? The last time we had this, the power outage, FEMA sent me a list of hotels to stay in that I wouldn't park in the parking lots at those particular hotels. So those are all things you need, and I mean, those are all things you need to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Are you emotionally prepared for a flood? I don't know if I am. I honestly, I'm a waymaker, you know, so I'm kind of crazy, but not everybody's going to live on the edge like Naisha does.
Yeah, and I think that we mentioned too in our when we were talking earlier about you can, I don't know if it was Scissor that was talking about this. Sometimes you can assume someone else's floodplain policy, or does anyone want to get into what that means?
Absolutely. So, you know, these houses that are in floodplains, most of them have been there for a while. No surprise there. And the current homeowners may have a flood insurance policy that's relatively affordable. I've seen these below the thousands, and we're talking like they're in the deep blue, they're in the flood zone. But you know, if I've had situations where I have a buyer's like, that's perfect, and I need to be here for XYZ reasons. So I think we'll be okay with it as long as we can get the flood insurance. So what I do is I just call the listing agent, say, hey, you know, does the seller have a current policy? Is it grandfathered in, right? And which means that rate is low. And if they say yes, we just in the contract we just add that the seller is to transfer, right, or assist in the transferring of that policy to the buyer, and they get that policy at that awesome rate, and it's no sweat off anyone's brow. It's a normal process. Now you need to find the houses that have that. So obviously working with your realtor, you should be able to navigate that quite well.
Yeah, so
And
oh, sorry.
I wanted to remind people that your flood policy can also make or break your loan. If the flood policy is it's an expensive policy, and your debt to income ratios are already high, you may not even qualify for that property anymore. So that's something to also take into consideration.
For sure. Another kind of practical side of things that we've seen that may be different for someone that, you know, is an existing homeowner, maybe they didn't deal with this the last time they bought a house, or a new homeowner, is there have been changes to commissions. And as part of a big settlement with the National Association of Realtors, that was, I think it took into effect last year. The years are blurring together for me. But anyways, one of the biggest changes for that from the buying side is that now you sign like a buyer's agent agreement up front. And in that discussion, you talk with the buyer basically about, what's your commission going to be? How is this going to work? What services are you going to provide? So Cesar, could you talk about like, what does that conversation look like? And, what should buyers ask a realtor before they go ahead and sign an agreement?
Sure, absolutely. Great questions. You're 10 for 10 for 10 on all the questions. Um, when it comes to the commissions still remain negotiable. They've always been before and after the settlement. What I do want to say is that it's forcing that professional conversation between the buyer's agent and the actual buyer to occur where they're discussing what their commission is, the buyer understanding that they're actually agreeing to be responsible for that commission to be paid to their agent. And therefore, the buyer should rightfully be asking, hey, what's your level of experience, right? What can you negotiate? What's your ability to negotiate? Is your commission negotiable? What if I don't really need you to do all this other stuff? I just need you to do this. Have those discussions. And your agent should be, the agent you ultimately end up picking, right? Should be able to show you their value. I mean, there's just like any other product or any other service, there's a value proposition here. Gina is a totally different um, agent than I am. And, most of my clients, I'm going to say love me, but there's some people that opted not to work with me because we have different personalities or our pace is different, we could say. But they would probably be perfect with Gina for many reasons, right? So definitely take the time. Buying a house is already complicated, difficult enough. Make sure that you're working with somebody that you're able to work with. So absolutely, commissions remain negotiable. My favorite feature about the whole outcome is that now there's clarity of the agent that you're actually working with. There's clarity that they actually work for you. Prior, a lot of agents were operating as sub agents, but then they weren't really disclosing exactly what that was, and that's really the whole predicate of the lawsuit. But not to bore you guys with law and all the boring stuff. I think the outcome is very positive for the buyers. You guys are, for those of you out on the market right now, you are navigating in a much more protected environment than before, and also a lot of the agents that weren't doing things, properly, they've kind of left the show. So the pool of agents that you have to pick from now is much higher. Gina, I think you were mentioning before we came on something about the quality of agents that you're noticing.
Yes. So I work primarily for sellers. I'm primarily a listing agent for my team. And the offers that we've been receiving are from seller agents, star agents who were able to ride out the down real estate market the last 2 years. So um, comfort is a huge importance factor when hiring an agent. You need to be so comfortable with your agent that you are disclosing everything and also asking them questions and you're comfortable with communicating with them. It's a two-way street. And as far as the August 17th NER rulings of the new documents you have to get signed and buyer rep agreements, what I'm seeing is, when I represent buyers and when I represent sellers, that we're still going on like usual. The sellers are still compensating buyers agents like usual. And if they're not, then their house is sitting on the market. Because when we have these buyer representation meetings with our clients are required by NER for these documents to be signed, there is a earnings or a percentage that is on there. And whatever is not paid by the seller is paid for by the buyer. So to do our due diligence before we schedule a showing, we ask the listing agent, what is the buyer agent compensation, so that we can inform the buyers of their portion to bring to closing if they proceed with submitting an offer on this house and going under contract and to closing. But if the seller is not compensating fully the buyer's agent compensation, a lot of times my buyers say, you know what? I don't want to see this house. So what sellers are doing and what listing agents are guiding sellers to do is to continue to fully compensate the buyer's agents. Your job as a buyer is to really interview these buyer's agents that are around. There's not as many as there used to be around because a lot of them have fallen out of the business and have chosen a different career because they weren't able to get enough clientele to provide for their families. So, but you still need to interview the agents that you hire because sometimes it's a 3 month process. Sometimes it's as long as 6 months. And if you're not comfortable with your agent and you're not, and they're not willing to work or they're not available to work or they don't have the expertise, then you have set yourself up for not a very successful transaction. I teach a home buying seminar for like 9 years straight, and we kind of did a pause because we just do one-on-one consultations now. But the 5 things that I found that you need to look for when hiring an agent is number one is availability. Are they even available to help you? Are they too busy with other clients? Are they too busy with the summer life of family and children and they don't allot the time to show you homes, etc.? Are they available? Do they have the time to take care of your real estate needs? Number two is willingness. Are they willing to work? You know, you have coworkers at work that are not willing to work and you're having to pick up their slack. You cannot hire an agent that's not willing to work. Number three is competence. Do they know what they're doing? Do they know how to read a contract? Do they know how to guide you? Do they know how to explain these contract terms that put you at risk or at protection for you? Number four is trust. You've got to trust your agent. If you don't trust your agent, it's almost like a marriage. If you don't trust your partner, it's very hard for you to succeed at a high level in life. So find someone that you can actually trust, look at their track record, look at their ratings, look at what people say about them. And then number three is number five, as I already mentioned, is comfort. You have to be comfortable with your agent because you're not comfortable, you're not honest. If you're not honest, it leads to destruction and it wastes everyone's time. So find someone who's got the expertise, who's a full-time or overtime agent or a team agent that has a support and they want you to succeed too. So hiring the right agent is extremely important and compensation, don't worry. The sellers are paying for compensation. Hire the right agent is your only job. Compensation can be talked about with the agent to the listing agent. It will be taken care of.
I think that's great advice. And I just realized, we're getting close to the hour. So I wanted to kick it to Colleen to get started with some of the audience questions.
Absolutely. We've had a ton coming in, so keep submitting them now. We're getting to as many as we can. First person was actually saying, okay, we talked a lot about financing specifically, but for someone who just kind of wants to know the basics, there's a few of these in here. I'll go to Caesar first. Can you give us just what a typical timeline? What can someone, in terms of months, days, it is, in a timeline to actually start talking to their broker, getting everything and they're in their new house? What does that look like?
Okay, great question. And I was noticing that. So I'm going to make it very simple and I'm going to remove a lot of the hypotheticals. We're assuming that you are, number one, decided. The resolve to buy the house is now, okay?
Mhm.
And number two, that the financing is in order. So you already spoke with Naisha. She has you with an awesome loan product, right? With
Yep.
those two things out of the way, I believe Gina and I could easily have you in a house in 30 to 45 days. It's honestly not rocket science. We could break down the steps of the home buying process into 8. Honestly, I could probably break it down into 5 easy steps, right? So you already met with the realtor, you already got the financing. So let's remove that. Let's go shopping. Let's submit offers. Let's negotiate, right? Let's get under contract and let's close that baby. It's really that easy. And if you have a competent agent that knows those steps and knows all the micro steps within those, and they should be able to. The home buying process is going to be just as easy as, going and just ordering what you want and relaxing, and it should be fun.
I was gonna just hop in. It's like it is true. Once you have an agent, someone had asked, like, what do you do? How do you go about negotiations? Pretty much they do it for you if they're good. They may come to you and say, hey, when I negotiated, the seller didn't agree to this. What do you think about that? Obviously they'll come to you and ask for your input. But by and large, they take care of, they do a lot of the heavy lifting if you are finding the right agent. And, pretty much it's just about hiring the right lender and the right agent. And obviously, if you have properties that you see on Zillow or whatever, you could totally bring those to your agent. They can help you, get into those actual houses. You can go to open houses on your own. It's really more about like a team sort of a process, and your agent is going to hold your hand through that process. However much hand holding you need, they're going to do it.
I like to tell buyers this. You set the amount of info that you want. If you want to be maximally involved, we'll stress you out. Don't worry about that. But if you want to if you want to focus on your own life and your own career and whatever it is that you do, we'll dial all the way to the other end, and you'll just wake up one day at the closing table.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of signing, e-signing,
Yeah.
e-document signing.
Yeah. And if 30 to 40 days, let's say roughly for Caesar, what do you think, Naisha, for your part of it? Roughly, would you say 30 to 40 days? Would you say you need months? What does it look like for you?
Our average close time is 21 days. So from the time that the offer is submitted and accepted, we do the inspection, do the appraisal. People get the inspection and appraisal mixed up. Inspection is to make sure the house is habitable. The appraisal actually determines the value of the house. From appraisal date, we usually close in 21 days. I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but I don't want to talk to you every day for 60 days and hear all your stress. Because I get real close to my clients and they start telling me all their personal business, and it becomes stressful. Now it's personal that you're helping this person, and I want to get them in and out and to their next property, because my goal is to help them get into one property and then invest in more properties in the future. So 21 days is our average turn time from the appraisal to the closing table. And just a piece of advice, just a smidgen. A lot of people get really excited about closing and they have their moving truck outside at the title company. I highly suggest you don't do that. You give yourself a few days. I gave myself 2 weeks from the closing date to actually close. I closed on time, but anything can happen. Anything can happen. And I've had people have their items dropped off on the grass. I've seen kids not be able to roll into school. I didn't have lights in my house for 2 weeks because I didn't expect to close as quickly as I closed. So I didn't turn my utilities on. I stayed at an Airbnb. The Airbnb was roach infested, so I left at 3 o'clock in the morning. When I got there, I was in, lights off, I'm out. And so I camped out in my house with air mattresses and candles until the utility company could come out. So give yourself plenty of time for closing. I know you're excited. You're not going to have a mortgage payment for like 60 days after you close most times. So it's not a financial issue. Take your time and move. You just never know what's going to happen at the closing table. We've had people's SBA loans come up, child support issues come up, people go buy cars, and because we re-pull your credit before we fund these loans. So we're seeing you out there getting washing machines and dryers and couches, which you shouldn't be doing. So just keep in mind to give yourself plenty of time to close. I have notes here. I have a whole list of notes, and I'll get back to the rest, because Gina says I probably got some stuff to say too, but yeah.
I wanted to chime in about the shopping. When you shop for a home, make sure you have a healthy perspective. Okay. Number one is during your preparation time, you're also narrowing down what your needs are, right? And also your location. Okay. So you walk into the home, there's two things you need to look at. Number one is location. Do you like where the home is located? Is it zoned to the schools that you want it to be zoned to? Because you cannot pick up the house, even though you love it so much, and put it somewhere else. So number one, location. Number two is floor plan. Does the floor plan of the home work for you? Does it suit your needs? Everything else, guys, is extra and fixable and upgradable. Okay, so I see in the chat, Mr. James, if there's something that comes up in inspections, don't be too scared. Everything is negotiable and everything's fixable. Give the seller a chance to fix it or give you credit to fix it. During inspections and negotiations for that, either you can have the seller choose their licensed professionals to fix it, provide a receipt of the repair and it has to be a licensed professional that does the work according to the truck contracts, or you can ask for a repair credit where you can choose your own professionals and make the repair after closing. So if carpet is an issue, if paint's an issue, those things are fixable. And you can talk to your agent about it and they can negotiate a credit for you or a lower sales price. So if you go in there with a healthy perspective and healthy expectation, your shopping time will be shortened. It typically takes 2 to 3 weeks for a buyer to choose a house that they want want to submit an offer on. If it goes under contract after negotiations where both parties agree on terms, then usually takes 21 days to close. Other lenders takes 30 days to close. And then really you can be in the house, your next house in 2.5 months, 3 months. It just really depends on your shopping and on your expectations of that. Knowing what you want before you have a realtor start showing you homes is going to help a lot. And a way for you to narrow it down, as Marissa mentioned, is go to as many open houses as you can. On the HR app, what I love about the HR app is that if you go on a date with your fiance, your boyfriend, your husband, or you go out with your girlfriends, you're looking around, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a great area. I would love to live here. Pull out the HR app, click on homes for sale nearby. Okay.
Mhm.
When I bought my house at the age of 26, I was in Rice Village. I love the vibe of Rice Village. I told my agent I want to live in Rice Village. And guess what my budget was? My budget was 130,000. And I was using a down payment assistance program that gave me hell going through it, but I had no clue. But we are in the information age now. The smart people in this group who are in this seminar is looking for more information. Go to that app, click on that nearby homes for sale and see if it's within budget. And the way for you to know your budget is to call Naisha, put it in a loan app, and they'll tell you how much a lender is willing to lend money for you. And that's where you're gonna know, okay, my max budget is 300,000. My max budget is 500,000. Don't shop beyond your budget. Live within your means. And then when you start shopping with a realtor, you can succeed faster.
Actually, that's a great segue because you mentioned Rice Village, and I see people in the chat saying, like in all caps, I love Rice Village, right?
I
Like
do
who
too.
doesn't? I
Yeah.
do too. And we, on that note, I wanted to actually kind of pose this to all three of you, starting with Gina, because you're in Pearland, if I'm not mistaken, but Caesar, you are, I believe, in Cypress area, and
Cypress.
Aisha, you're out of Spring. So, someone was asking, what are the areas that are you all seeing to be the most attractive for new buyers in Houston? So obviously Marissa has been doing a ton of reporting in this space. But from your vantage point, almost where you are in, physically located right now, can you maybe give us like shorthand 2-second answer? What are those top areas that are like near to you? So Gina, over to you first.
Sure. So my life season is married with school-age children. So I
Mhm.
take care of a lot of friends that I know and also all their referrals. And it really gets down to age of the home, size of the home, and school ratings. And for my clients to be able to afford that, they're going to the suburbs. They cannot
Mhm.
afford Rice Village or Memorial. They're going to Katy, they're going to Pearland, they're going to Manville, they're going to Cypress. So that's where the hot spots are for my clients.
Is there a specific area in Pearland? Like, do you know details that everyone like wants that one street or that one district? Like, is there anything even that specific, or is it just get me to Pearland?
It's get me to Pearland, and some of it's West Pearland, and some of them it's East Pearland. It just depends on what their personal preferences are. But there are homes out there ready to be purchased for sure.
Okay, Caesar, what about you? From your Cypress point of view, what's around you kind of hot on the market right now?
Yeah, I think Lakeland Village in Bridgeland is really nice. Very cute houses, phenomenal amenities. Marvita is being developed right now. Big, gorgeous homes, a lot of stone, semi-modern architecture up in the front. So you kind of get a Miami vibe sometimes when you're there. The Town Lake is a classic for me. I go there all the time. Every time we have stale bread, I take my son and get fatten up those ducks. Um, but there's a lot of overlap with Katy as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I would say Cyprus is a big one over here. Everybody wants the schools. Now,
Okay.
a sleeper area I do want to say is Hockley for investors. Okay,
Okay.
very affordable homes. A lot of their grants, USDA loans as well, so 0% down over there. And Tesla's bringing a battery manufacturing facility into Waller County, so we're right there. They share schools in Cypher, so a lot of positive stuff going on in Hockley right now. So for anybody who's looking for a good first home, good easy, access to 290 or an investment property, I wouldn't look past Hockley.
Awesome. What about you, Naisha, over in Spring area? What's going on over there?
Now, you guys know I'm rebellious. I didn't care anything about the area. I homeschool, so it didn't really matter. Yeah, I homeschool, and then we did charter schools too. So I didn't. Me, if I go to the store and look for a little pink dress, I'm gonna find a blue one, and I didn't want to be looking for a pink dress knowing that I was gonna wear a blue one. So my son, after the pandemic, he did much better with homeschooling. We kept him homeschooled, and then we also did charter. So the location didn't really matter as long as I Googled, someone asked about safety areas. Legally, the realtors can't tell you if the areas are safe or not, but I would go on Google and I would look up the demographics and the crime in that area just on Google. And it would tell me about because there's crime everywhere. What crime am I willing to deal with? Do I want to hear my neighbor getting, beat up by their husband, or do I want to risk getting shot going to the store? Like, you got to pick your crime, right? In my neighborhood, cars get broken into. Big deal. Put my car in the garage. But no, I'm the oddball. And then I wanted to address there is somebody in there that talked about they walked away from a house because of an inspection. Here's a nugget for you. We can flip that to a rehab loan. If you fall in love with the house and it does not pass inspection, we flip it to a rehab loan. We can pay for the repairs through the proceeds of the loan. So if that's the house you want, I had one guy who had radiation in his basement. I said, don't do it. But if that's the house you absolutely want, talk to your lender about flipping it to a rehab loan.
Well, radiation in a basement sounds like peak Houston, if I've ever heard it. Somehow Houston ends up with flooding in every home, floodplain or not, like we talked about. And to your point about crime, of course, and schools and all of these things are always top of mind for people, and you all as real estate agents and brokers deal with these types of questions. We actually had a great HC Live, I think, just 2 weeks ago or so, with Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, who actually spoke to exactly what Naisha is talking about, specific areas and neighborhoods that, he was kind of course, monitoring specifically for higher crime rates. We at the Chronicle continue to cover crime rates and neighborhoods specifically, so you can obviously always look to our coverage there. And with that, we're basically wrapping up. I want to, take the time to say thank you again to Naisha, to Gina, to Caesar. They dropped their contact information in there for anyone who needs to refer to it. Also, you can search the article again, get their name and information from there. And Marissa, of course, and our wonderful real estate team, our business team continues to cover communities, home building, all the expansive areas of Houston. But like she said, Marissa mentioned earlier, we will be posting this on YouTube. So if you have anyone that's in the market for a home, definitely send this their way. We will continue to promote it after the fact. So with that, we obviously have climate change, rain, everything even just being talked about today. We coming up are going to have a how to prepare for tropical storms HC Live as well, and specifically speaking to homes and how to protect your home, how to protect your loved ones. So that's on the horizon for HC Live. We've also got, everything from that to the Chancellor of A&M University. So we cover all the details. But thank you again to everyone for tuning in. If you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to the panelists and Marissa's coverage for all of the updates. So, Marissa, is there anything else you want to add? I want to make sure to sign off with you last here.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can always, email me if you have any questions. I also have a real estate focused newsletter. I'll drop the link in right now, but I know we're about to sign off. So if you just Google Prime Property Houston Chronicle, the newsletter is called Prime Property, and I send out weekly basically roundups of real estate news if you're interested in that kind of a subject. And I also put links to some different maps of the top areas for Houston home sales recently and for affordability.
Absolutely. And the HC Live newsletter as well will also have this in the in case you missed it section. We'll refer to Marissa's coverage as well. And obviously home ownership is a huge topic in Houston. Our experts will probably be back, I anticipate, very soon for another one of these when we talk about another aspect of home owning in Houston, whether it is radiation in the basement, flooding in your home, or all of the above. So thank you again to everyone. Have an amazing rest of the afternoon and a great week, and happy Juneteenth. We are at the cusp of the holiday. So thank you again and have a great one, everybody. You guys take care.
Thanks, everyone.
You. So we just leave.
I know. How do I get out of
Nice
here?
meeting you.
Bye, guys. Thank you
Did we
so
just
much.
jump off?
Thank you. We got to keep in touch. I'll keep you in mind, Cesar, for Cyprus, and then Aisha for 21-day closing.
Yes,
Oh yeah,
likewise,
and
Jan.
saving loans. We save loans. A lot of lenders that can't perform, you bring them to me. I shop with 80 different investors, so I can reshop them and see how I can get them approved. So don't walk away from that closing table if your lender can't perform. Let me take a peek at it.
Okay.
Sure.
Sounds
Sounds great.
good.
Talk
Thank
to
you.
y'all later.
Bye,
Good bless.
guys.